Welcome back, everybody. This is episode 34, and today on the podcast, we are taking a road trip. That's right, cross country from the Atlantic to the Pacific.
Well, we didn't actually start at the Atlantic. Well, we started in Atlanta, but we were on I-40, and I-40 does go from the Atlantic all the way to the Pacific. We just started inland a little bit.
Welcome to Streets and Eats, the travel and food podcast dedicated to taking our listeners to the sights, sounds, and flavors of fascinating places near and far, both on and off the beaten path. We're Jim and Corinne Vale, and we've been traveling internationally and domestically together for decades, visiting more than 90 countries in all 50 states in the USA. We'll share all of the local knowledge and food expertise we've gathered through years of living as expats in Asia and Europe, as well as traveling with families spanning multiple generations around the world. Join us each week for a new adventure. Well, speaking of road trips, that's our next plan, is another road trip.
You know how we are. We can't wait to get on the road again. I mean, I'm singing that Willie Nelson song in my head 24/7.
On the road again.
Can't wait to get on the road again.
Yeah. It's either that song or My Bags Are Packed.
My bags are packed.
I'm ready to go. Anyway, we're being silly.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, so...
My bags are always packed, just so you know.
Yeah.
Invite me, I'm there.
Yeah, and I'm always ready to go out on the road. Well, winter's coming to a close. We live in the Pacific Northwest, so we're kind of surrounded by mountains any way we choose to drive. If we go any distance at all, there's a pass to cross.
That's right.
So
and those
not
passes,
the best time for that.
Those passes are my nightmare. I especially do not want to do them in a snowstorm. Or, I mean, if snow's on the ground, that's not so bad. But no.
You don't like passes anytime,
No.
even broad daylight, dry roads.
Actually, midsummer. I'll
never.
avoid them at all costs.
I tell her to go to sleep in the passes.
Which is worse, because then I just think, what's it going to do? But anyway,
we still love road trips, even with those passes. And for this podcast, the road trip we're talking about is the I-40 cross-country road trip. It's kind of a little story about why we were doing it. And I think we've mentioned in podcasts in the past, when we talk about road trips, when you're planning it, you really got to think about why you're doing it and what you want to do while you're on the road trip and
who
that sort of thing.
Who you're doing it with. Yeah.
And make sure you can consider everybody that's going to be on the trip and what they need and what they want to do. Well, on this particular road trip, the purpose for it was we had to move a vehicle from the East Coast to the West Coast. Our daughter Devin was getting a car.
A free car from her in-laws.
I mean, that's pretty cool. And at the same time, they were moving from Florida. No. They were moving from Japan to the States, but the car was in Florida and they were moving to Los Angeles. So they had to go in and pick up the car and drive it to Los Angeles. And it just happened to be coinciding with our spring break. So we thought that would be a great time to get together and have a cross-country road trip.
And driving cross country is one of those things that, sure, you can do it alone. And especially the way we did it. We only did a few hours a day, about 6 to 7 hours a day. So that's really not that bad if you're traveling alone. But it's always better to be with somebody else. And we didn't really want our daughter doing it by herself. And, we love a road trip. So we jumped on the chance to help her out.
Yeah. So we booked the flight, had everything set up. We weren't going to join her in Florida. The best flight we could get leaving out of Germany was to Atlanta.
Yeah.
So we booked the flight to Atlanta. We had a hotel reserved for the night we arrived. And then she was going to drive up and meet us there in Atlanta with the car. And we would all head up and go on the road trip from there. Well, that was a great plan, but oftentimes plans go awry, as did this one. The car fell through. Unfortunately, it would have been really cost prohibitive to cancel everything since it was already booked. We kind of had the plan laid out already.
And we had set up meetings with people.
That's right.
So, to cancel the whole trip would have just been kind of pricey and inconvenient.
And we really wanted to do it anyway because
we were looking forward to
we
it.
love a road trip, and it had been quite some time at that point since we had been back to the States and done anything like that. So we were all looking forward to it. Even Devin was looking forward to it. We were quite bummed when it fell through. So I kind of quickly got on the webs and did some looking around for a rental car that we could take cross country
and drop off, because that was the key.
With a one-way that wouldn't break the bank. And actually we did pretty good with an Avis car. And what did we end up getting? Oh, we ended up getting a Prius. So the gas mileage was good. It was plenty roomy for 3 people, and smooth and comfortable to drive. I don't know. I think for me, it was the first time I drove a Prius. I've driven other hybrids, but not Priuses. And so that was kind of a learning curve for me. It's a little bit different than your standard jump in the car and put it in drive and go. There's a lot more operational controls in the dashboard that you deal with, which was fun to explore and learn. I enjoyed it. So we flew into Atlanta and didn't have, I think, the best start, because right off the bat, getting off the plane in Atlanta from Germany after that long overseas flight, we realized as we were checking out the car, getting the car and already out of the airport, that we had left a phone on the plane.
When he says we, he means me.
Yeah.
And he's never let me live it down. Just saying.
Hey, I wasn't calling you out on it this time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's so rare that you do something like that. I have to take advantage of it.
Right.
Anyway, so we had to deal with that. Unfortunately, by the time we realized it was missing, everybody that had been dealing with that plane had gone home. So there was nothing they could do about that night. They said, come back tomorrow and we'll take care of it. Well,
and we're like, no way. We're out of here.
Unfortunately, our schedule was tight. We had to get from Atlanta to LA in 5 days, 6 days. So no, we weren't going to be there the next day. So we told them that, and they talked about ways that we could get the phone. And in the end, it all actually worked out. Very surprisingly, they did end up sending the phone to Los Angeles, where we picked it up before we flew back to Germany.
Surprise, surprise.
But it didn't seem like the best omen for the beginning of a road trip to have to deal with that. In the end, it was not a problem at all, of course.
And in the end, we didn't have any trouble on this road trip.
No.
It was easy. We pretty much did everything that we set out to do. Maybe we pulled in even a few more things that we didn't really plan on ahead of time. But the whole idea of it was that we were doing it quick and dirty. Like, we needed to get cross country. We had a goal in mind. We had places that we were stopping. We don't always make reservations all the way across. What we would normally do, depending on the time of year, depending on how much time we have, depending on how much we don't mind going off piste or whatever, we might call that morning or a couple of days before or a week before. But we had this set up probably a good month in advance with all our hotels where we were staying, because we didn't want anything to get messed up, and we were doing it fast.
Yeah.
We didn't want to mess up. We didn't want there to be a chance that something didn't go through.
And we weren't driving a lot every day, but we were still covering quite a bit of ground in, like you said, 6 or 7 hours. So that's not a small amount of driving. And when you're talking about getting all the way across the United States, if you start deviating from that, you're really going to change the amount of time it takes. So we really had locked that in. And for this trip, like you said, quick and dirty, get it done. But at the same time, we wanted to be able to enjoy ourselves, see a few things wherever we went, and not feel like we were rushed.
I think this was the first time, well, maybe not fully the first time, but one of the first times that we were cross country. We had a goal in mind. We had a deadline. We only had a set amount of days. And just like so many other people, you have to do cross country trips to take your kids to college, to go visit someone who is a relative or somebody who's in the hospital, or there's always, those reasons that you decide to drive cross country, and you think, well, it's cheaper than flying, because it probably is. Of course, you takes a lot longer to get there, but you're in charge of your own space, especially during times like this with the pandemic. And I think people find themselves driving cross country oftentimes, and you're going to take an interstate because they're uninterrupted and easy to drive. And yet then you sort of go from point A to point B, and you're kind of like, well, that was kind of a bust. I mean, sure, I had McDonald's 30 times, but, I don't really, and sure, you're on the highway, but the highway, you look over you might go through a city, mainly you're seeing green fields, and more green fields, or going over a pass or two, but you're not really enjoying the journey. So we took this as an opportunity to say, okay, we have a chore, we have a task, but we're also going to take enough time to enjoy the ride and have fun with each other. We hadn't seen Devin, so we wanted that, alone time with her just to talk and catch up and have a good time that way as well.
Right. Well, like you said, a lot of times a drive like this would turn into how quickly can I get it done? So when we say quick and dirty, we're not talking let's just get it done. Yeah, we wanted to at least see a few things along the way. So I think we ended up breaking it into like 6 fairly good sized drives, some longer than others, but basically we broke it into 6. And I think you could probably easily still do it in 4. 3 if you had multiple drivers and were just going to
barreling down
drive
the road
across the United States. Don't think
it's not what we would
do
suggest.
It any quicker than that. But yeah, we wanted to do it fairly quickly, cover a lot of ground, but still spend some time. So we would get up early in the morning, drive the distance that we needed to drive to the next overnight stay. And if there was something to do along the way, have time to do that around lunchtime, and then get into our destination city for that night fairly early enough in the afternoon to where things were still open. We could still do the sightseeing for that place before everything closed, and then check into the hotel, have a good night's sleep, get up in the morning, breakfast, repeat. And it worked pretty good.
And I think that, we did spend a whole week driving, and we did stop at all these different places, but we had a really, really good time. And I think we look back at it as a memorable trip versus just a chore, which I think is important.
And since the chore kind of fell through anyway, that was really perfect.
Well, the chore, itself fell through, but that didn't alleviate the fact that we only had 1 week.
Yeah, we still had the time limit.
To get from Germany and back to Germany in 9 days.
Right.
And so, crossing the Atlantic, that takes a couple of days right there. So we really only had 7 days, 1 week.
Yeah.
And we wanted to make the most of it.
Mm-hmm.
So what did we do? Well, first of all, we had to choose our route, and we chose I-40. If you don't know much about I-40, I'm sure you've been on it at some point if you've gone anywhere near the middle of the United States.
Yeah.
But I-40 is the one interstate that does that. It goes smack dab right through the center of the U.S. and it hits 8 different states. Who can name the 8 states that I-40 goes through?
I can. Well, because I've
got it here in front of us.
But it starts in North Carolina, it goes through Tennessee, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Arizona, and it ends up in California. And yeah, it is the coast to coast highway in the middle of the United States. There's 3 others. The I-10 goes along the south. And actually we're going to be on that one a little bit this next road trip. The I-80 goes a little bit north of the I-40, and then the I-90 goes across the north of the United States. And we've done
some of each.
We haven't done much of the I-10.
No, that's probably the one we've done the least.
Quite a bit of the I-80 and quite a bit of the I-90. We've never done either one of them all the way across the states in one trip. I would suspect if we looked at it in all the trips we've been on, the I-80, I think we've covered all of the I-80, but only most of the I-90. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we should look at it.
Yeah, we will.
So I-40, if you go from point A to point Z, is 2,556 miles long. Well, we probably drove about that many miles, but we didn't stick only to I-40 because some of the things we wanted to do were not on I-40. So we made the choice to go to those places which added mileage, but we also didn't start at the beginning.
Right.
We started in Atlanta.
And
so
then
we probably missed the very first bit.
Well, in Atlanta, we had to drive to Memphis before we actually got onto the I-40. So all of Tennessee and North Carolina, we didn't do.
So that means we need to do it another time.
Right. But I mean, I-40 goes through some pretty iconic places like Memphis, like I said, Raleigh, North Carolina, Nashville, Little Rock, Oklahoma City. One of my favorites, Albuquerque. Of course.
That was my favorite first. I'm just saying.
Always. And maybe that's why it's mine. I don't know. For me, Albuquerque kind of got cemented into my pop culture sensibilities, I guess, from Bugs Bunny, of course.
Well, yeah.
Because every time he's going cross country, he's tunneling underground. He pops his head up, says, "This doesn't look like Pismo Beach. I should have took a left at Albuquerque." So as a young kid, I always wanted to go to Albuquerque to see why was Bugs Bunny always going through Albuquerque. And now I know he's going there for the food.
Yeah,
it's good food.
It's delicious food. One thing I didn't know before, and maybe I kind of knew it. You know how you don't,
but you don't put it together.
Really cement an idea. Yeah. But so one thing that I found really interesting as we were researching this trip was how much of old Route 66 is really turned into I-40. So we did a lot of Route 66 and stopped at a lot of the iconic places along our trip as well, because it was so easy to do off of I-40. Some of it is actually melded and it's the exact same road, but a lot of it you have to just get off at an exit, do a piece of it, then get back on, go down to another exit. But it's simple to do, and it's so much fun. And the pictures, my photos, the whole iconic American road trip dream is still well and alive there. So it was a lot of fun.
Well, the Route 66, of course, is that classic road trip, and it's the original interstate highway connecting, I think it connected Chicago to Los Angeles. So the I-40 picks it up in Oklahoma City. And then from Oklahoma City on, yeah, like you said, it's either on the old Route 66 that's been widened and turned into modern interstate, or you can take exits and you'll see the signs for the historic Route 66, and you can just drive parallel along the highway or through downtowns of smaller cities, which are really fun. And you'll see those old, like the old gas stations and motels and all that really cool kind of pop art type places.
Now, as we mentioned, Route 40 goes through, or I-40 goes through a lot of really cool cities. But as we also mentioned, we only had 6 days. With the amount of road trips we've taken, we've gotten our share of fights on road trips as well. And a lot of the times that really boils down to everybody's just tired. That's one of the reasons why we went ahead and booked our hotels ahead of time. Nobody is happy looking for a hotel sometime in the middle of the night or evening after you've been driving for hours and hours and you can't find one. So we made that decision to pre-book. And we also made the decision that we didn't want to drive at night at all, if possible, and to keep the driving time down to 6 or 7 hours, because you could, as Jim said, get up in the morning, drive for 6 or 7 hours and be somewhere at a decent hour so that you can go wandering downtown. You could go to a museum. You could go and do whatever you wanted to do, have a nice dinner, and then go to bed, get a good night's sleep, and get up the next morning and start again. So that was our premise for this trip. And I believe it worked out really, really well. And if we do plan another cross-country trip, we won't do it any faster than that, I don't think ever again, because it did work out so well. And I hate getting into that feeling where you're just driving, and you're tired, but you still keep going.
Still want to keep going. Well, and one of the reasons it worked out so well, I think, is because we did make a plan early on to know where our stops were going to be, and everybody knew what those stops were. So we all had a chance to look up and see what it was we wanted to do in those places, and everybody shared on. I think we used a Google Map and a Google Doc to show the different things that we all want to do. So nobody went into it wanting to do something, but never having a chance to express that and then missing what they wanted to do. So that's really a key, is to make sure everybody has a voice and everybody gets a chance to do the things that they want to do as much as possible.
Our big question was, do we do the Grand Canyon? Now, the Grand Canyon is off-piste. It's not on I-40. It's not that far off of I-40, but it's not on I-40. You have to make a trip up there. And so we all decided, all of us had been to the Grand Canyon before. So it's one of those things we easily could have skipped if we wanted to. But as we talked about it, we're like, it's just one of those things. How can you miss it? So we all decided that it was well worth a few extra miles to go and see the Grand Canyon. So we included that on our trip as well. And the other place that was kind of like that, I would say, is Vegas.
Right. Again, you're going to leave the I-40 to get to Vegas, and then heading to Los Angeles, you're going to come back to it. So you do miss a part of the I-40 going out of Arizona into California. But really, that part of I-40 is not that exciting anyway, although maybe the people in Barstow would disagree with me. Vegas is kind of a cool thing that you don't necessarily want to miss either. So,
well, and the reason you go there is sort of for a little hoorah, right? A little extra oomph. And so that's always fun to stop there.
Yeah. Okay. So, like we said, we started in Atlanta. We got our rental car and we drove to Memphis, was our first stop. So that was 391 miles. Memphis, we really wanted to stop in Memphis. None of us are really Elvis fans, but the thing that really, I think, got us excited was the duck parade.
Yeah. At the hotel in Memphis.
The Peabody Hotel.
The Peabody Hotel. Okay, so we're both educators. And one of the books that we always read was about the Peabody Hotel and the Duck Parade. Do you remember who wrote that?
I don't. We should have looked it up.
We'll look it up and put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
But it's a great book. And I had read it to my kids. I'm sure Jim had read it to his students at times. And it's just something that we always knew about and thought we needed to do when we went to Memphis. When we were researching it too, though, funny little story. So I was asking all around, what would you do if you went to Memphis? And of course, everybody says Beale Street. Of course, it's a given. Everybody says go to Gus's Famous Fried Chicken. Given. Then, of course, Graceland is not far away. You can go to Graceland and you can go to the Peabody Hotel. But here's the one that really, really surprised me. The Bass Pro Shop.
Right.
When someone told me that, I was like, are you kidding me? The Bass Pro Shop? Why? Well, the Bass Pro Shop in Memphis is a pyramid.
It's a huge glass pyramid
building. And as you walk in, it's just like a scene out of somewhere in Appalachia, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you've walked off the trail or onto a trail through the hills and through the forest, and all the different sections of the store, they're all themed for whatever it is, for hunting or fishing or outdoor sports, camping, whatever. But the whole interior is just massive.
And they had alligators.
They've got and they had
games for the kids to play.
Of course, a shooting gallery. That was easily one of the funnest 2.5, maybe 3 hours that we had spent
in a store, basically.
Ever. And none of us are like big hunters or fishers. We
like the outdoors, but we're not shoppers. So, we're Amazon buyers,
So that was pretty cool. And walking down Beale Street with the music playing. And
you can't beat that, right? Because you have the whole walk of of the music with all the stars and little placards everywhere telling about all the different jazz musicians. And you see the bars and the clubs and everybody's playing and there's tons of shows going on.
Street shows going on. And yeah, it's really high energy. Very cool.
And we were there in the afternoon. We did not go there in the evening because we didn't want to be tired on our only second day of driving. So we didn't do a whole lot of like party and type staying out, but we really enjoyed the vibe and the feeling that you get just walking down around the downtown area and Beale. Now we went to the Peabody Hotel for the duck parade in the evening. I think they do it twice a day, and we did the 5:00 one. Or is that right, Jim?
I don't know.
At any rate, we were very happy that we did that. It's a free thing to do. You just go to the Peabody Hotel at the right time and watch the hotelier let the ducks leave the fountain because they've been
velvet rope and lets them cross over out of the duck pond fountain area, like you said. They've set up more velvet ropes to keep the crowds off the path, and the ducks just parade on out. It's very cool.
If there's something you're interested in, they also have things for the kids that they can be like a special duck queen or duck king or something. And I don't know. It's a lot of fun. So you get a cocktail and you watch the ducks parade. I enjoyed it. I have to admit. So Memphis was kind of fun for us. We knew that when we were going through, we weren't going to be able to spend so much time everywhere. So we just wanted to get a taste of it.
Do the highlights.
And we feel we did that pretty well. We did go, speaking of taste, to Gus's world famous fried chicken, and it lived up to the hype. It's fast food, fried chicken.
Hot chicken.
And it was good. It was yum, 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 yum.
Good fried chicken. Good coleslaw. Good beans. All of it. We had to wait. There was definitely a wait.
Wasn't a long wait, though.
But it wasn't long. And since we were driving, we were able to find a parking spot fairly close by, order, and just kind of hang out. Really tasty chicken. So from there, from Memphis, kind of a longer day the next day, we drove to Oklahoma City. So right across Arkansas. We didn't stop other than maybe once for gas in Arkansas. We've been to Hot Springs before, and that would have been I think probably the highlight that we would have done.
I think Little Rock's a nice city if we wanted to spend some time there.
But we had to get to Oklahoma City. Again, that was a meeting point for some people. So that day and that time and that meeting place had to
make it.
It had to happen. So what was it? 466 miles. So kind of a longer day, still only 7.
What was cool about that, though, we woke up in Memphis and right away you take the bridge over the Mississippi River. And I think that
during
was
sunrise,
pretty beautiful.
Really pretty.
And then, right across the river, then you're already in Arkansas. So you're from Memphis to Arkansas. And I mean, these things, you look at a map and you see them, but you don't really, I don't know, until you experience them. Sometimes they're more poignant than you expect them to be.
And Oklahoma City, always a cool place.
We actually stopped in Tulsa on the way. So we had a couple of plans there. Devin actually went to college. She did her grad school in Oklahoma. And so this is what Oklahoma turned into for her, was meeting up with old friends from her program.
Right.
And one of them lived in Tulsa. So we stopped there for lunch and had a Mexican lunch, which was really fun. And while we were in Tulsa, it is on Route 66. So we went through Tulsa looking at all of the Route 66
icons. Historic Route 66 drive, which is a very cool section of the highway or the route. And had lunch. Yeah. And then off to Oklahoma City, which since Devin graduated from Oklahoma University, we have been there before. We've done a lot of stuff there. Of course, anytime we go anywhere, there's always something we find out about that we really want to do. So we have something to go back to. For this one, of course, we went to the National Cowboy Museum, the stockyards, and of course, more of those Route 66 icons in Oklahoma City, since that's where it joins the I-40. You get a lot of that stuff there. And yeah, Devin met up with some friends. We stayed in a hotel around the Bricktown area of the city, which is a very cool
kind of a hipster vibe.
Yeah, young vibe. And then for breakfast the next morning, of course, you got to go to Cattleman's for steak and eggs near the stockyards.
Which we do every time we're in the area.
You have to.
It's okay. So the Cattleman's Cafe right near the stockyards, it looks old. It's one of those places that is just got nostalgia written all over it. You walk in and there's a counter and there's some tables and there's just ladies behind the counter working and kind of yelling at you what you want. I don't know, the whole thing. And then, of course, the menu is all meat all the time. It's beef, and beef. And but it's delicious. It's so worth having like a steak and eggs there. You can also go for other meals, but we like going for breakfast because that's just the way we are.
Yeah. Well, and there's, there's the national chain restaurant of Cattleman's. Are they related? I don't think they are.
I don't think they're related. Honestly, I don't know if they're related or not. If they are, it's not what the chain is at all.
Right.
This is an original. This is when they're talking cattlemen, they're talking about people who work at the stockyards, which is half a block down the street.
The meat's coming from the stockyards.
That's right.
Fresh.
And the stockyards, I mean, you can even go to
the auctions.
The
That's
auctions
really
there,
cool.
which are so fun, so interesting to watch.
Yeah.
So much fun. So, Oklahoma City is one of those places in the United States that if you haven't been, and you probably haven't even thought of going, it is surprising. Mm-hmm. It's got so much to do and see. And especially if you like Native American or cowboy culture, it's got a lot of that. Like, for example, one of the things I found really, really interesting in the National Cowboy Museum, which was a lot of fun, by the way, they had a whole room dedicated to barbed wire.
That's right. All the different wines and barbs, and it was fascinating.
It was really fascinating. It was so much fun.
Just the whole story of, enclosing the West and all the controversy that came with that. And then actually seeing the different types of barbed wire. Of course, we got excited about the old rusted thick wire mesh fencing that was used in the Iron Curtain. And that's us. So of course we would like the barbed wire.
Oh, hell. Yeah, I will. Okay. So we're weirdos. We like fences. Anyway. So yeah, basically eating there. One of the big thing is definitely the Cattleman's for breakfast. Like I said, you can go for lunch or dinner too, and you're going to get steak. If you don't go there and get steak, then don't bother going, because there's the freshest, best steak. So old fashioned, so your mother's table that you won't ever want anything else. Mm-hmm. We were downtown in Bricktown, which we thought was a really up and coming area. It was so much fun to stay down there. And we just had pizza at the Wedge Pizzeria there. And that was really, really good. So there's so many restaurants in Oklahoma City that you can't go wrong, really.
Mm-hmm. So from Oklahoma City, this is the longest drive that we had to Albuquerque.
Because as we've already waxed poetic, we love Albuquerque. It is probably one of our most favorite cities in the entire country.
Well, you were stationed at Kirtland Air Force Base.
I was
in Albuquerque for a couple of years. So I think you fell in love with it then.
Way back in the early 80s. Yeah.
What is your favorite part about Albuquerque besides the food? Because I know that's your first answer.
Here's what I like about Albuquerque. Albuquerque truly is a southwestern city. It's got that Native American flair. It's got beautiful turquoise jewelry. It's got adobe houses. It's got candelarias in Christmas time. I also love that it's on a high plain, but then not only is it on a high plain, but you can go up to the crest, which is another, I don't know, couple thousand feet, and you can ski all winter long. But during the daytime or during the weekdays, you can be down working in the city and there's no snow. I mean, it's just such a cool city all the way around. And the food is the best. Hatch chilies are my favorite thing in the world. And, you can go there and you can have green sauce or red sauce, or you can mix. They call that Christmas.
Christmas style is my favorite.
And, because of the altitude, the sopapillas are the best sopapillas you're going to have anywhere in the world. If you've had sopapillas in places like Texas or California where you get these flat chips, you have not lived.
Oh, yeah.
You have not lived.
Sopapillas need to be fluffy.
And pillowy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they are in Albuquerque area. Albuquerque's just great. I just love it.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite things there is the Old Town. And it has turned a little bit commercial with a lot of shopping around it, but it's very artistic and very local shopping. So it's arts and crafts type stuff and really kind of cool stuff. But my favorite thing there, of course, is the Rattlesnake Museum.
Oh,
It's the best snake museum, I think, anywhere.
Well, if you can handle a couple of big rooms filled with cages of rattlesnakes in it, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I could handle it. We had a blast there.
And I think obviously it started as a rattlesnake museum. You know how you're driving along the highway and you see, especially in the Southwest, you'll see the snake pits, next exit, that type of thing. So I
don't know if those still exist. I haven't seen them in a while.
I hope not.
I know.
But I was thinking something like that. So I was a little bit leery of it. But it's actually a very well done museum. And they have specimens and artifacts from all around the world, not just rattlesnakes. So very, very cool place. One thing, as we were driving across Texas, did we stop in Texas
We
anywhere?
did. We didn't want to spend much time in Amarillo, which is another stockyards place. But we did decide that we had to have some Texas barbecue.
Yes.
And one of the most famous places in Amarillo is Dyer's Barbecue. I was going to mention that, but you didn't. But
Right to Albuquerque.
But we love Albuquerque, so we get sidetracked. But so we did drive in, and we planned only to stop for lunch, and that's what we did. We did stop by the Cadillac Ranch too, because it's real close by. The Cadillac Ranch being those Cadillacs that are upended in the fields outside of Amarillo. People go and paint them and stuff. We didn't do it. My sister and her grandkids did it, and they really enjoyed it.
They loved it.
So maybe next time we'll actually go painting. But this time we, schedule. But Dyer's Barbecue was well worth the stop. We tried fried pickles. We had the barbecue itself, ribs and fried pickles, and I don't know what else we had, but it was so good. Ooh. It was filling.
Brisket.
We definitely did need to eat the rest of the day. You
really
had brisket. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we did do that. And that's where it was a good stop. And it really, since we were driving further that day, we needed to kind of take a break in the middle of the day. So that worked out well.
Yeah. Worked out really good.
And then after we drove into New Mexico, before getting to Albuquerque, we did drive over the Continental Divide. There was an elevation sign that was marked 7,275 feet.
Speaking of mountain passes, but in that part of the country, you don't feel like you're on a mountain pass. Yeah, it's a high elevation, but you had a very, very gradual climb to get there. And none of the passes, even going further west, are that bad, I don't think.
So in Albuquerque downtown, where the Rattler Museum is, it's in the Old Town. And the Old Town itself, it's like I said, it's very Southwestern. It has that adobe look, and it's really pretty. There's an old mission there. Mm-hmm. There's shops, there's restaurants, and
hotels. There's
hotels right in that downtown area, which if you are not going to be in Albuquerque long, splurge and go for right downtown because it's beautiful. We had you can't go wrong with the food in Albuquerque. Mm-mm. Well, we already mentioned some of the foods you can eat, but we ate at the Frontier Restaurant that's down by the university, and it's been there, I think, something like, 60 years or something. And it's one of those kind of divey cafes where you go in, you order at the counter, and it's mostly Mexican food. I don't know if it's all Mexican food. All we ate was New Mexican food because it's all you want when you're there. But the beans are delicious. The burritos are delicious, and it's cheap, super cheap. It's basically been there for students. So you can imagine good food for a fraction of the price. But there's no frills either. No bells and whistles. You're just going to go in, you're going to eat, you're going to enjoy it, and you're going to leave.
Yeah, very down to earth.
Yeah.
And delicious.
The one place we found that was not far from our hotel, and we were looking for a good New Mexican breakfast, was the Range Cafe. Oh my.
That was quite good. And it really fit the bill because it was right off the I-40. So we didn't have to deviate from our route leaving the next morning. And yeah, that was some of the best food, breakfast or otherwise, I think that we had on the entire trip.
I think so too.
What were they, bowls?
Well, no. What one of us got, we both got a different kind of New Mexican tortilla breakfast.
Yeah.
And so one of them was blue tortillas that had, oh gosh, I can't even remember everything it had on it. Oh, it's just so good. Cheese and beans and eggs and oh my, yum, 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 yum. If you have a chance, go there for breakfast. It's really, really worth it.
So we had that delicious breakfast and I mean, a little bit full, but that's good because you're ready for a long drive. It wasn't that bad. Our next drive was from Albuquerque to Grand Canyon. So 410 miles.
But we did stop off again in Flagstaff, which is a beautiful city. And we've never spent enough time there actually for lunch, a Mexican lunch again.
Yeah, we stopped in Flagstaff for lunch. And that's where you're going to leave the I-40 to head up to Grand Canyon. And you have two choices here. You can stay on the I-40 through Flagstaff and then head north out of Williams towards Grand Canyon Village. Or you can do what we did and head out right at Flagstaff and drive up, I think it's the 89 out of Flagstaff. And it kind of goes up a little further along the canyon and it gives you a chance to drive through some different landscapes than just driving straight up to the Grand Canyon and back. So it makes kind of a nice little add-on to the trip, but well worth it.
And it's a pretty add-on. And the road is really pretty.
Yeah, definitely well worth it. If you're planning the Grand Canyon, we can't stress enough. You have got to plan it as far in advance as you can if you're planning on staying there. All the accommodations is quite a bit in the area, but it all fills up really quickly depending on the time of year you're going to be there. And yeah, plan it early, book it early. So we did it quite early.
Well, we did it early and we were also traveling in April, which is not quite high season, but I have to tell you, I was surprised at how many people were at the Grand Canyon in April. Apparently all the schools are having, their spring break during that time.
Yeah.
And everybody's there with their kids.
Beautiful weather. It was probably I think the best time of year to go to the Grand Canyon. The snow is pretty much gone. It's still a little cool or cold at night, but it's not too blazing hot during the day. So good time for it.
And sunset was amazing. And you could just be out there as long as you wanted to. So it was beautiful. From there, that's when leaving Grand Canyon, that's when we decided to take our detour to Las Vegas. And Vegas is just one of those places, if you're going by it, why not stop? Because no matter how many times you go, there's something new to try. Get a little gambling in.
Maybe
I don't know about
show.
you. Jim loves to do what do you love to do? Roulette?
No. Well, I do love roulette. I like blackjack too.
And blackjack. And I can just sit at those little
penny slots
all day long. I don't like losing money. So if I lose a couple dollars, I don't really care, but I don't need to make a whole lot of money. I don't even know if they have penny slots anymore.
I don't know. They probably do, but you're never going to spin the wheel for a penny. It's always going to be a penny is the bet, but you're putting in 100 of them for 100 different lines. And for me, slots are way too confusing. There's so many different ways to play them anymore. I like the old days where you drop in a couple of quarters and you pull the handle.
And you're done. Yeah.
For me, that's slots. If you're not pulling the handle, what are you doing there?
So we did a couple of things while we were in Sin City. We definitely did a little gambling, and we went out to this place that was doing a mini golf inside called the Rock and Roll Mini Golf, and it was black lighted and it was pretty flashy, but the kids loved it.
Playing, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. But one of the reasons we were going to Las Vegas was for the Celine Dion concert.
Oh yeah, that was. Yeah.
And along with the car falling through, that got canceled on us. So
Yeah, we didn't
we
get
had
to
a
see her.
little extra time to do things like the mini golf and stuff like that.
We also went to the Neon Museum at night.
Yeah,
That was fabulous.
That is excellent. They took, they've preserved a lot of the old neon signs from the Strip when things, as things progress and evolve and get bigger and bigger in Las Vegas
and flashier.
Something's got to go. So as they tear down those old establishments, they've had some foresight and preserved a lot of the old neon signs from that stuff and kept them out in this one lot, a very large outdoor lot. And you can go in at night. A lot of them are lit up, and it's just a fantastic place. Really fantastic.
And then I couldn't help but eat at Hell's Kitchen.
Hell's Kitchen.
I love Gordon Ramsay, and
that was one of the best meals.
Oh my gosh, we were all on it. We also met my other daughter and her husband.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he came. They flew into Vegas, so we picked them up at the airport, and we were only in Vegas basically for, I think we spent 2 nights there. Because we just, because we wanted to be with the kids, basically. So that was sort of our chance to be together.
Mm-hmm.
And so we all went to Gordon Ramsay's Hell's Kitchen. We ate out of the Blue Kitchen, I believe. And
yeah, that's right.
It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. It was kind of pricey, but it was a lot of fun.
It was very pricey, but it was worth it, I think. And there's a lot of great options for food in Las Vegas, of course.
Yeah, I mean, you can't
all
go
the
wrong
major
there.
chefs, all the major Michelin starred restaurants have outlets there. You can't go wrong.
Which, you can't beat just stopping for the night in Vegas. If you're going to go have a nice dinner at one of these, highly acclaimed restaurants with a chef that's won awards and, pull a few slots or run a few hands of blackjack or whatever. Just a couple. You don't have to go there all night, but it's just kind of just a nice little thing to do along the way. And It's not far off I-40 at all.
And we could have, if you're doing the same sort of route and you don't have as much time, you could easily skip to Las Vegas and get from Grand Canyon to Los Angeles in one day.
Mm-hmm.
So we split into 2 drives, and it added a little more mileage to it because it's a little bit north and then back down south. So the Grand Canyon to Las Vegas was 280 miles, and then leaving Las Vegas to Los Angeles is only 270 miles. So both of those days were very easy drives compared to everything else, only 3 or 4 hours, and really doable. But yeah, like I said, you could skip the Las Vegas and easily get from Grand Canyon to Los Angeles in one more drive.
But by the time we got to LA, we were kind of pushing it for time because our flight left the next morning.
That's right.
And so we basically checked into our hotel. We went to eat dinner at one of our favorite places called the San Franciscan.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's another one of those sort of blast from the past type places where it looks like a 70s restaurant and it feels like a 70s restaurant.
The menu is a 70s restaurant.
The menu is very 70s as well. I mean, it's very retro and every aspect. But there's always a line.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Got to make a reservation.
And they basically serve, I don't know if they serve anything else because we've never eaten anything else, but they basically serve prime rib.
Mm-hmm.
They're known for their prime rib. So you go there and you have really a nice slab of meat and
salad.
It's
baked
yummy.
Potato and a cocktail.
It's yummy. And the cocktails are really good too.
Yeah.
But again, it's all very retro. So it's well worth checking out. And it was a nice last meal before we left the States and headed back to Europe. And we didn't really need to spend a whole lot of time in LA or in California because Devin was moving there. So we knew we were going to spend.
We knew we'd be back
a lot of time in the future.
And
there.
we have.
And we've spent, California is probably one of the states we spent the most time in. Just
Even
because
with the pandemic, we were still able to travel to see them and get into Los Angeles a couple of times. So yeah, that was it. And the last big thing that we had to do was get to the airport,
pick up my
drop
phone,
off the car, and convince the people at the Lufthansa counter that no, really, the people in Atlanta did send a package with our phone in it to them. And they found it and back on the plane and back home. I-40 in 7 days.
Yep. It was a lot of fun. As you know, we love road tripping and we have other road trip articles and posts on our website, Roving Veils, as well as Reflections en Route. We've been on road trips all over the world. We have road trip tips. If you want to talk road trips, we can always talk road trips with you. Thanks for listening. Please join our private Facebook group, Streets and Eats. And don't forget to maybe leave a review, a great review. That helps us get listeners, and we really appreciate it.
Give us some likes and subscribe to the podcast. We really appreciate it. And, thank you for listening. This is why we do it, for you guys out there.
All righty. Ciao for now.